My goal here today is to show you how to weight map and create a rope, a string, a tube, whatever you need to use for a kite, a rope bridge, things like that. I've already created one, but I'm going to show you the steps I go through to create it. So it's going to take a little bit of time, but if you pay attention, I'll do it in steps that you can't get lost in. First thing you do is when you open up iClone, you're going to have an interface option. Yours may not look exactly like mine does. To get all of your tabs to open, you press Control-6, and then you choose where you want them to go. Mine are set up the way I use it. The project, the modify, preferences, and all that you can set up over here under Edit Preferences. You set yours up whichever way you want, but the basics will still apply. The first thing you do when you go in here, what we're trying to do is weight map a cylinder or a plane, doesn't matter. When you come in here, sometimes your simulation is going to be set up as PhysX or bullet. Now if you open an old project, it's probably going to come in as a bullet engine. To do this, you have to be set up for PhysX. I'm going to show you that. I'm going to open a project. I've got a weight map rope for iClone6 project already set up. I set this up initially in 5 to show you this. If I open this up, you'll notice it went from PhysX back to bullet engine. You can't use bullet engine to weight map this cylinder to make it a rope. If I press play now, it'll just sit there. That's all it does. It has no physics applied to it, even though you have physics in the program. So make sure you go into project, check PhysX Engine. If you don't, and it's set for bullet, and you go into modify, and you choose this prop in your scene, this rope, you've got 3 options: modify, animation, or material. Okay. When you switch it over to PhysX, you get one additional item under modify. This PhysX. So make sure you've got it set for PhysX. Activate PhysX, object gravity, rigid body, soft cloth. This is going to be a rope, so it's got to be soft. If you want it rigid, then all you need is a regular cylinder. But this is a soft cloth, so that's what we want. In order to do this, you have to put pins on this. Now before you had to have a external program to pin something. This you don't. On this particular piece, you have 2 capped ends, one on each end, and then around here I'm going to put a weight map around these polygons at the bottom of this rope, and in the center around this area, and at the other end, same place. Then I'm going to show you the different reactions you get based on a dark weight map, a light weight map, or whatever. In the project, you can put a activate image, and you can bring in a image to give you guidance. Weight mapping a rope, string, or tube requires a few things in iClone6. Something needs to be weight mapped, such as a cylinder. You want it to be a rope or a string. A UV map is a guide for the weight map pinning, and a weight map applied using the UV map as a template guide for where to place the weight maps. Now this is just a backdrop. I'm going to turn it off because you're not going to be able to see everything I do if I keep it up. But I wanted to show you that dark is heavy, has no motion for a weight map, gray being the medium of the weight and in between, and light being a full flowing cloth such as linen or satin. This would be closer to leather. This I guess could be linen, and this could be satin. And if you were doing a skirt, for instance, you could use a gradient map such as this: dark to light, heavy at the waist, gray towards the knee, and white towards the hem below the knee. And then you would get a gradient map, weight map for this. So in this case, I'm going to have a black map on this end, a black map on this end, and a black map in the center. And the rest of it's either going to be gray or white, depending on how heavy I want that rope to be, or how much sag I want it to have. So I'm going to go and turn that off now and show you how it's done. Take this prop, and you can bake animation, of course, in the project, or you don't have to. But I'm going to go into Modify. I'm in Physics. I've got Soft Cloth. Now I need a weight map to hold that in place. So I choose Weight Map. And to get a weight map, you've got a diffuse already on it. Opacity, if you've got an edge, and you'll see that in some of your default projects. To edit the weight map, you can launch it here. You can launch the UV as a guide, and then overlay the UV onto the actual weight map itself. So launch your UV, you do an update, and this is the UV map itself. If I undo, I've already got this set up. What I did is I copied this, made this background layer a copy here, and then turned this entire layer white. Within white, I used this as my template guide as to where I should put my weight maps. This being the length of the rope, if you were to turn it sideways, take this image and rotate it, you could assemble it and look at it the same way it is in the program. But this is the end of the rope, this is the other end, and this is the middle, of course, somewhere in this area. So I can put a weight map at this end and at this end, these being the cap ends that don't really hold anything, they're just filling space, so it's not an open tube. You could use that for an opacity, so you could turn that rope into a tube, and that way it would be open all the way through. But we're weight mapping here, so this area is going to be pinned with black. This is going to be pinned with black. What I do is use this as a guide, and without it, you wouldn't know where to put your weight maps, because your weight map or your UV map comes in black like this. So what I do is I turn the opacity down, use it as a guide, and then I choose the area that I want to edit by taking this and drawing a box around the end of the rope. Another one here, I could add to it. Another one down here, and if I want one here, or here, or here, or here, doesn't matter what the size is as long as you cover within this bounding of the UV. This is the entire circumference of the rope itself, diameter. So here we go. This was pinned, this was pinned. Now I can change and put as many pins as I want in here. I'm just going to keep it at 2 right now because I've done multiple maps already. So if I select, deselect, and turn this back on, you'll see underneath, if I change this opacity, I'll just drop it down just a little bit more, you'll see underneath it, with that as a guide, it doesn't have to be right exactly on that, but it does have to go over it at least a little bit, a pixel or two, to grab the entire end of that rope, grab the other end down here, and that is where it's going to be pinned and pinned for this particular version. If I turn this off and I take this, I say File, Save As. Now you can save it as a re-recording of something you've already got in the project, but you don't have to. You can save it first and then come back and open it up. So I'm going to show you that first. We're going to say this is a brand new creation, and I'm going to save it under this particular folder where all my weight maps are. I'm not going to use a PSD because iClone doesn't read PSDs, but I use a JPEG, and you'll notice I've got 3 in here already. Weight map rope 2 matches what I've got here. This was matched to the 2 little ends on the rope that you saw on the UV map, and this was 3 pins. So if I want to pin only the ends, this is the end of the rope, this is the end of the rope. I just save it and overwrite it and say OK. Now let's assume that's a new map. I've just saved it. I could update this one, but I'm going to open this and show you. This is weight map 2. This is the one I just saved. Open it, and now it's in here. If I press play now, what happens to the rope? Well, it gets kind of saggy, doesn't it? So I'm going to come out here and move so you can see. It gets kind of saggy because the weight is too light. So to make that heavier, all you got to do is choose this map and bring the brightness down just a little bit to a grayer scale. Grayer being a heavier cloth weight. And now you see it doesn't sag quite as much. Now, that's what we want. We don't want it to fall, but we also don't want it to sag too far. See, it's too light a weight, so it basically hangs there like a string. So I'm going to take the brightness and bring it back down just a little bit more. And you can also increase your contrast because you're going to need those little black pins to hold it. This is a weight map. Think of the black holding it in place and the light color as the weight of the cloth itself in between this end and this end. So I'm going to brighten it, bring it down, make it a little heavier, and there we go. Now, we've got a weight map that's steady. It's holding fine. Then we need to come over here. Once we've got this, you can leave that, or you can close it, or you can upload it and edit it again. Now, if I wanted to edit this map, all I've got to do is go in here and launch. And that's the same map that we just sent out. The only difference is it's gray versus the white. The pins are still in the same place. Now you can come back in here and you can edit this again. You take your paint bucket and paint that. And then it becomes exactly what was there. And then once you do that, it's going to say save. And you can save it. Okay. But in order to know what you're changing here, that little thing right there is what tells you where your pins go. End of the rope, center of the rope. Now, let's say on this map, I want to go ahead and put a pin in the middle. I know for a fact, just by looking at this diagram, around the middle is right here. So I just come over here, and I'm just going to grab a little hunk of it right there, and I'm going to pin it in the middle of the rope. Okay, so just pull that out, pop the black in there, and make sure it goes all the way to the edge. If you have to, you zoom in on it, come over to the edge, make sure that edge is all the way out as far as it'll go. Okay, and then file save. Now you can do file save as. This is what it was, and I'm going to replace it with 3 pins here, here, and the one in the middle, and save it and say OK. I just want to show you the save as so you can see the difference. Now we've got 3 pins, end, and middle. If I press play now, I'm going to get a pin that holds it up right here. And that's how you pin. Now you have to decide what wave of cloth you're going to use. Well, if you use general, you double click. Once you get your weight map set up, that's the general weight. Now you see how much more sag it's got to it. Okay, got more sag. And the more polish you've got in that rope, the cleaner it is, but you can only go so high. So if I hit stop, press play. Now that's a general weight. It's not too bad, actually, if you're going to use it as a Q rope. So what you can do is once you get it in sag position, bring it down and leave it right there. Okay, didn't quite get it dead center, did I? So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create primitive shape, a cylinder, and I'm going to hit R to scale it, to bring it down, and then I'm going to bring it up. Here's a cylinder. Okay, we'll just say that this is going to be like a Q post line. Hit W to move it over. This is where it's going to be pinned to, right? You don't want it to look like, sloppy, so you line it up with these, and then press Control, drag another one over here to this end, press Control again, drag it over, and now too far in, bring it over, and then choose all 3. Press Control, click, 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 or click, click to add those, And then you come up here and you can right click and remove object animation, and remove anything you've got selected, any animation. So that way it'll stay in place, because I'm at frame 109. I don't want it to go anywhere after I go back to the beginning. So hit stop. My rope is still. Press play. And now you have a 3-post cue line. Of course, you can extend the size of the rope, do whatever you need to do. I'm just showing you how I think as I go through this. And if I wanted to do a cue rope, there it is. Now I can also come in here, hit stop. Now that I've got the 3 poles in place, and do a create primitive shape, and create a sphere, a cone, a box. Let's create a sphere. Let's hit letter R for scaling, and bring it down, and then bring it up. W, bring it over, set it on top of that. Doesn't have to be exactly perfect. Not for demo purposes anyway. I would be quite adamant about getting it straight otherwise, but press Control, drag this over, and there is a multi-duplicate option, but this is only 3 posts, so it's not that hard to do. And then you're in frame 1, so now all 3 are in their place. Hit stop, press play, and they stay there. And if it's too tall, you can take each ball and select it. Hit letter I, choose the ball, and we want to attach it to this post. Take this, pick parent, attach to the post. Take this one, pick parent, attach to the post. Now when I move this cylinder or post, the ball will move with it. Just like this. Okay, now they're attached. They're engaged, so to speak. They're not married unless you merge them. So you can merge it, become one piece, and it becomes a cylinder. But it's got a cylinder with a ball on it now. That's where the ball and chain come into play. And then you can do Control Z, and it's called a divorce. Cylinder, ball. Now the 2 separate pieces again, and the ball can go on about its merry way. Control Z. Bye, ball. Come back. Alright. Anyway, I'm stop playing around with that. Alright, now we've got the rope and string. We know it's physics. We know it's soft cloth, because when we do this, it falls. But is that the actual weight we want on it? Do we want denim, fleece, skin, satin, linen, whatever? Put denim on it. Now watch it. Hardly any sag at all. General is a good place to start for anything that's soft cloth. It's just a general overall weight. And then you go satin. Now satin's really light, so you're going to get more motion out of it, especially if you add wind. Now there is wind for this item. You can go ahead and load one if you've already saved it. You've got mild wind, moderate wind, strong wind. Okay, but it also changes your cloth. So it's better to do this. Open up one you've got. Let's say it's moderate wind. Now watch what it does to this itself. See, it inflates it, but it's based on a different parameter for that. So what you got to do is go down here and look at your wind settings. 200, 500, 100, 100, 100. Okay, each one is different. So every cloth is going to be different. Now you look, there's a soft versus rigid. If this pole was kinematic, it would throw it off. If it was self-collision, it would throw it off. You can bring this down and you'll get a different effect out of it. See, you still get the wind, but you don't get the self-collision between the polygons of the cloth itself. So there you go. Now this would be like a pure side rope, where the wind is just, blowing through as a breeze, and then you can adjust the wind for how much activity you want it to happen. That's just an example. And now let's say I don't want this center post in there anymore. How would I fix that? Well, you can use the same rope, go back into physics, go all the way to the top of the modify, hit the edit map, take out this pin. Let's say you only want 2 posts here. go in here, launch this, update it, and then when you update it, view, fit on screen, and we're going to take this as gray, which matches everything else, and then we're going to take this box and just draw it around it. You can start here, you can start there, it doesn't matter, as long as you start somewhere. And we're going to take this middle pin out, go all the way to the, from here to the edge. Then I'm going to hit delete, and it goes gray. And then do Control S, save it, come back, and this will no longer pin in the middle. So to show you that, I'm just going to take this pole, right, and I'm going to turn it off. Now the ball turns off because it's linked or attached to it, but you can leave that on so you can see it's no longer linked by weight map. The center weight is gone, so now it sags between these two posts. And you can do that. You can take off one end so that it swings like a standard rope from side to side. You would attach it to a dummy and move it around. But that's how you create a rope, a string for a kite or whatever. And then if you don't want that pole in there altogether, just turn the ball off. Hit front for the rope, hit F, and this is my rope. Now if I want it to start at a different place, I can bring it up. It doesn't matter. It's not linked to anything. It's not attached to anything, but you can attach it. I'm going to hit W for the rope. Make sure I've got that, and it can hang up here. It doesn't matter. It's pinned on this end. It's pinned on this end. I removed the black from the center so it's no longer pinned there. The wind is moving it now based on the weight and gust of wind that are set up in the wind setting for the cloth itself. This is the texture. Let's go down here. Your wind is here. This is an even wind from left, right, forward and backward, top to bottom. It's kind of an even setting for all three. But you're going to get more wind to push it forward and back and up and down with the 500 set. If I were to turn this sideways, you'll see it. You're getting more motion from front to back than you are from left to right. If I take this and I increase this force to, let's say, 600, coming from the left. Now watch what your rope does. It was coming and sagging down here and then swinging back and forth from front to back. If I do this, you get more wind pushing it in this direction so that you don't get quite as much sag. So it's basically pushing this loop back up where it was. So it's settings you have to play with until you find out what one you want. If I take 0 and 0 and 0 and press play, then you get nothing but the wind gusts. And the wind gust on this one is here, here, and here. There's no force on it to push on it. So the wind is just taking it. Okay? Those are things you have to look at for parachutes or reins for a horse. One end would go to the horse, one end would go to the avatar's hand, and then you put your soft cloth settings on it, and there you go. There's your horse that you can ride with a set of reins. Of course, you wouldn't use an exact straight line for horse's reins. You would have to have a curve in the end of the cylinder, a bent cylinder, if you will. And then you just have the character grab the end of it at a dummy that you attach or link to that rope. And it took me a while to figure this out, so just be glad you know it ahead of time. It'll save you a lot of time. You can do this whether it be on a flat plane, whether it be a skirt. If it was a skirt, you'd put the gradient map on it. Dark, it's a waist, and then gradient the map down from a dark gray to a lighter gray all the way to white at the bottom so that it moves a little bit and collides with the character, so that it actually flows, but it doesn't move at the waist. You don't want it falling off the waist as the character's walking. That's why the gradient map is so good, because it's heavy at the top and lighter at the bottom. Gradient maps, black to white. Gray is in between, middle map. You can create any string, any prop that needs a string, hot air balloon, horse's reins. Anyway, that's a soft cloth. That applies to any cloth. Doesn't matter what it is. It could be a blouse, it could be a skirt, it could be a pair of shorts. It doesn't matter. Just decide where you don't want it to move and where you do want it to move, and then do your math in between. Pin it where it needs to be pinned. On a character that's walking, let's say, in a baggy shorts, you want it pinned at the crotch and at the waist. So you need a good UV map to know where those points are on that cloth when you look at it in your photo editor. It's really simple. Pay attention to the weight of the cloth first, then choose the cloth type, and then choose your wind in that order. Know where you want to pin it, know your UV map, know how to read it. Enjoy your weight mapping. Cricky out.